Lindy, good to see you again. Whoa, hi. Welcome, Susan. I don't think we've met. Good to see you. Um, Robert, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. Whale, welcome. Sebastian, great to see you again, man. I hope we're going to meet each other in Europe one of these days soon, very soon.
Yeah,
Joss, welcome. Yep.
thank you.
Yeah. And we'll see how many. We had 35 people from, I think, 7 or 8 countries, which is really terrific. Large number from the US, of course, but always great to um, have numbers from everywhere. Uh, yeah. So we'll wait a couple minutes and see, or we could just start in. Why not? I mean, if you have a question that you'd like to ask, why don't? What do you think, Laura?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. So we wanted to allow you all the opportunity to get to know George a bit better. He's obviously the founder of Kinder Institute of Life Planning, a thought leader in financial planning and advice, but he's also a down-to-earth guy and has a lot of really wonderful pearls of wisdom to share with us. So we wanted to create an opportunity where you had the you could ask him the questions that you've been pondering, whether you're new to life planning in the work of Kinder Institute or you're a registered life planner and have been practicing it for a number of years. So with that, if you'd just like to either raise your hand and go ahead and ask a question or put your question into the chat, we'll open it right now.
Yes, Lindy.
Lindy.
I am brand new to the life planning process, and I have just finished an obstacles meeting with somebody who's a brand new client, and I kind of feel like, what's next? Because yeah, so I'm not really sure what to do now.
Well, that's a great question. And Lindy, she says she's brand new, but she just went through the Evoke program in HANA, which was great. Hello, Fluffy, um, and and so you're in a mentorship at this point with the crew. I think that you go till you feel that you're complete with the process and the client feels complete, like they're really launched into that dream of freedom, the torch, and you feel together that they're just making it happen. And that's what I would do. And I'm not sure. I think you've got a financial planning process. So after the obstacles meeting, if I'm a financial planner, I go to that financial plan and I integrate that movement through obstacles with the plan,
Okay.
so that we can do whatever the financial executions are that we do in a traditional financial planning meeting. Is that helpful?
Yeah, so just looking at her goals and that came up and tying them to, okay, yes, thank you.
Okay, good. And feel free to come back if you want to go for more if we have time. Good to see you. I'm glad you're on obstacles already. Fantastic. It's been a few weeks. Looks like, is it Robert or Bob?
Uh, Either is fine. Bob is fine. Yeah. Hey, thanks for having me here. I guess I'm like on the other end of in terms of on the life planning from kind of like a formalized like your program perspective. I found the information online a while back and I signed up and then I saw this invite and I thought, you know what, I'll jump in. But I'm kind of trying to work in my I've been with Edward Jones for 19 years. But my background before that is I have a degree in nutrition and I have a master's in exercise physiology. And so I do my best to blend at least concepts in. And what I've really been trying to accelerate on is having outside, um, like people I can refer to in certain areas, because there's a challenge of like if you know a bit about something to maybe present yourself as also the expert on that, and then you're not kind of delegating things and you create more workload for yourself and you don't differentiate yourself. So I'm just curious about like, do you have a process in terms of like how you go about integrating other people to refer to and like a vetting process in terms of how you go from have meeting somebody to referring to them, those types of things. And so I just wanted to ask that big kind of general question just to see if those are some topics you're going to touch on at all.
Fabulous, Bob. Really, really good.
Yeah.
And I'm thrilled that you're here. And the notion that you mix nutrition and exercise and just sounds incredibly valuable for a client. So I'm really inspired by what you said. In terms of, I mean, in the program, and Laura, you can correct me if I'm wrong. And somebody has some sound on. It might be John Foley. Let me.
Yeah, I
Oh,
just, I muted everyone. Sorry for that.
In terms of the program, the mentorship probably covers that more than anything. I didn't put a formal process for those kinds of referrals in, but often the questions come up in the Evoke meeting. Sometimes, I mean, in the Evoke training. Sometimes they come up in the 7 stages training, and I'm sure they come up in the mentorship as well. So I don't know what to say other than I'm totally with you on referring, that I would have my team of specialists that I would refer to for those particular elements. Yeah. And Laura, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that.
Well, just it came to mind that if Bob, you really enjoy doing certain aspects of that, then that's stuff that you might want to keep. And so part of what you go through in terms of the life planning process and our training programs is better understanding yourself and what's the role that you want to serve for your clients. And so if it is that you want to combine financial planning with nutrition, with exercise, like that sounds amazing. You might be like a leader in the field, but also understanding what are the aspects of your role that you do want to hand off to some other professional, whether it's somebody in your office or a referral to somebody in the community. So that part of the work that we do is kind of better understanding who we are as professionals and how we want to show up in the world. Is that helpful to you?
Yeah. I mean, I think in the end, where I see my role is kind of looking at the whole picture in terms of helping them and being an accountability partner, and then also being a resource that they feel comfortable touching base with on things. Like I'll give you an example, and then I'll be quiet because there's a lot of people on here. Like I had a client who's kind of like type 2 or kind of like borderline diabetic, and was taking meds and basically trying to not have to get farther and farther along that whole kind of like medical path. And I brought up the point of having a continuous glucose monitor and wearing that and using that, and so I gave him the information, then had him gave him suggestions, and then he did that, and it like changed everything. So now he's loving that. But I didn't, like, I just gave him the information, and I was the person he came back to and touches base with and tells me how he's doing, but I'm referring back and saying, hey, you should go talk to so and so, or double check this with so and so. So he feels like I'm his advisor, that's what I'm doing. So that's how I see my role. Yeah.
Beautiful. And I think that's really how we all do it, in a way where we know something, we come forward and share it. And where we don't, we have people who are the right people. But often we don't even recommend to people that usually we toss the ball back to the client and say, your situation better than anyone. How would you address this problem? And likewise, if they go, well, I guess I need an estate planner. And again, we might toss the ball back to them first. Does anybody come to mind? And we always have in our hip pocket some solutions if they don't come up with something. But usually what we're trying to do is to energize the client so that they're really engaged around all this and not completely dependent on us. Good. So I see that Ohan has raised his hand, and I hope I've covered well enough for Bob, but it's an amazing process bringing the clients kind of into the whole thing and making them alive in the process. Yeah, Ohan, good to see you again.
Hi, George. Good to see you too. Good to see you, Laura. Good to see you, Lindy. Good to see you, everyone. Thank you for having me here in this wonderful group. George, my question is, parallel doing life planning for our own clients, I am thinking of suggesting my services as a fractional life planner as well, to go help other financial planners or insurance people or financial advisors in general with big firms. Maybe they want me to go to do couple sessions with their clients. My question is how I position myself. Although I want to tell them that you will be the financial advisor, you will be the main contact with them and everything. But what if maybe I'm overthinking, but when I build the trust with them, they want me to be part of it, but I'm only doing first 3 meetings for Evoke, and then knowledge and execution I'm giving to the client, who the advisor who gave me the client to do this process. So fractional 1099, although I have some people in my mind who are doing it, Justin Castelli, he has an offer on his page. I will contact him and ask him as well. But I like, this is a great opportunity for me to ask these questions. Also, I commented you, but I want to congratulate and happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you, my friend. Great question, Ohan. And just my first thought is in approaching the professionals that you're reaching out to. One of the things that I did early in my career was that I reached out to the best professionals in the fields that I knew and offered to life plan them. And that immediately brought them in. First of all, they understood the process, they saw its value, and then they're thinking, how does Ohan fit in here? Where could I use him? Where would it be most valuable to have him in the process? And now you're engaged in a conversation with them that is dynamic and really valuable. And again, you're partnering right there with it, rather than some kind of abstract thing and saying, "Here, I've got a solution for you," without first knowing who they are and them not really knowing who you are. So that would be the main thing that I would suggest. Yeah. Is that helpful?
It is very helpful. You just change my paradigm. Instead of me thinking on their behalf, let them think themselves. That's the same as you mentioned with clients. We don't have their solutions. Although we can, as our profession is, but they have the best solution for their problems. Got it.
Right on. Beautiful. And they'll love the life plan. Everybody I did it for just fell in love with the process.
Got
So
it.
you know
Thank
that already because you've been through Evoke.
you.
Thanks,
Yes.
Sohan. So
Thank-
Jake, it looks like Jake has raised his hand, and feel free to unmute, and it'd be lovely to see you as well if that's possible.
Yeah, I'd love to be seen, but I had a really I sleepless night and a bit of a mess. So I
Uh,
appreciate you this meeting. So I'm an enrolled agent and I have an RIA, and so I lead with tax usually, and writing a book about tax specific to people selling property after many years. And I live in the Bay Area, so properties have gone up a whole lot. So that's soon to be released. And I guess my question is, like, a lot of the times I have a little trouble turning the corner because people hold me into their tax role, and they have a financial planner. And that's one question. The other question is, like, um, a lot of times when I'm working with retirees, because that's sort of my niche, it's not like they have something they want to go do. They want to get out of work and they want to make sure their money lasts through the rest of their lives. Sometimes they want to move, sometimes they want to get closer to the kids, stuff like that. But often they don't really have specific things, that they need to go do. So I'm wondering, maybe I'm doing something wrong, or I'm not really bringing it out.
Beautiful question, and I don't know whether either of those is true, because you're in a profession that you understand really well, and you're working from the frame that you have there. But I will share that we have a different approach, and it would integrate beautifully. I mean, as you probably know, maybe you don't, but I was a tax advisor for 13 years. That's
Yeah,
mainly
I
what I.
read part of your book, so yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay, cool. So so that was really my basis. But what I learned, and I even learned it there, was that the most extraordinary thing that I could do for a client was listen. And I don't mean listen to, hey gosh, I don't know what kind of deductions I have here, or I don't know what to do with my 401k plan. I mean listen to who they really want to be. And so the life planning process, in a way, starts there. How can you plan? How can you use money? How can you apply money or a financial plan to a person where you've got these cookie cutter kind of ideas of who they might be? And they've shared those cookie cutter ideas with you about, well, I want to retire in this way. And it's very kind of generic, basically. And they're sharing them in that way because that's how the press tells them. That's what the press tells them they're supposed to be thinking about. So we do something really very different. We uh, and I transitioned from taxes to make this happen. But I began to get to know my clients early on because I realized that as a tax professional, a lot of their deductions would come from them actually revealing what they do with their life and what they like to do. And so I would build a deduction structure out of that. I was one of the first people in the world to treat a psychologist's therapy expense as a business expense instead of as a personal expense or as a medical expense. But the way that we do it, Jake, is I mean, you would probably need to reframe your website and all of that and the expectations. But when a client comes in, we ask them, what brings you here? What would you like to have happen as a consequence if we were to work for a while together? What would that look like? What would the results look like? And really the question is, why are you here? In terms of this broader picture of financial life planning. And the thing with the retirees that you're coming up with, so first of all, there's a listening process that we go through, and where the client's doing 90% of the talking. And we have different ways of pulling those answers from them. A lot of it is just emotional intelligence. When they share something that's really tough, we feel empathy. We show that without speaking a word. We just show it in our eyes or our gesture or a guttural or something. And if they're excited about something, we go, wow, again, without asking them more questions about it, just sharing this emotional connection. And as a consequence of that, we are building a kind of trust that professionals don't know how to build. And it's a trust that has to do with their whole life. They've come to you because they know you're good at taxes, or they know you're an enrolled agent. But what they don't know is that you're a pretty incredible person in terms of sharing, listening to who they really want to be, and understanding it, and then mapping it into the financial planning process. So once we've listened really well and they see that, and they've come up with things that they love, the second meeting that we do, and it might happen in the same, hour or two meeting, but the second time we come together, we're going directly at what's their dream of freedom. Well, we don't ask those particular words, but that's really where we're aiming. Who do they really want to be? What have they really not done that what are the legacy issues here? So, and I'm sure you can see in my books and in the articles that I've been quoted in that I ask pretty deep questions about if you only had 5 to 10 years left to live, what would you do? Or if you went to the doctor and you just suddenly discovered you had 24 hours left to live, what did you miss? Who did you not get to be? And those are the questions that a financial plan ought to be based on. Otherwise, we're wasting money going after whatever the Wall Street Journal or Kiplinger's or Money Magazine said were the issues. They aren't the issues. They're really personal to people, and we want to meet them at that level, at that place. So I hope that's helpful.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I'm really glad you're here. I love having another tax person here. It's such a strange thing to move from that. And what a wonderful thing to do, to move from that to actually listening and serving the client. So Susan, it looks as if and you're from Canada. Wonderful to see that. Bravo, we're great fans of Canada here.
That's good. Not too many Americans are these days, but
A few are not.
yeah.
We are. The real Americans, I think, are.
I don't think that's true.
Okay. Well, anyway, Susan.
No, what I mean is I don't think that what you said, Susan, is true. I think that we, the American people, don't have anything against Canada, and we're kind of railing against what is happening. So
Exactly.
No, thank you. Thank you for that vote of support. It's hard to be betrayed by your best friend.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just want to pipe in on what Jake was talking about in retirement. Just a bit of background. I was a financial advisor myself for 38 years and watched my clients as they transitioned from their careers and businesses, professions into retirement, and realized that many of them were not as happy as they thought they would be. So that's what prompted me to sell my practice, which I did, and focus only on the non-financial aspects of this major life transition called exit, retirement, rewirement, whatever you want to call it. So what we've found though is that a lot of people don't know anything but they are in their working life, and that they need a whole different approach, a whole deeper discovery approach to tap into that essence of who they really are, and then to actually design their life in this next chapter, in this next phase of life. So, I think that there are a lot of major life events that people go through, but what my experience was with this retirement journey wasn't what they expected it to be, that society still painted this very rosy picture of, sailing off into the sunset and it's all golf and travel. And many of my clients tried that and failed, weren't happy, and so on. So this is a big inflection point, I think, for clients, for people to actually discover who they are first at this stage of life, what their priorities are, what motivates them at this stage of life, and then consciously design their next chapter. So the underpinning to my thinking on this is the first book I wrote, The Rich Life: Managing Wealth and Purpose, and then 9 Steps to a Rich Life Retirement. And I was trying to convey these ideas that, it's like, believe in what you talk about, George, that living this rich life is ultimately the goal, and but the journey to get there is what is an enigma for many people anyway. So I just wanted to throw that out because Jake talked about his transition from tax, and then, especially retirees, I think have different challenges than people at earlier stages of their life.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Susan. And it sounds like you're right with us. And that's exactly what you're describing, is exactly what the evoke process is designed to do. Just exactly. And one of the things I discovered was that people need it not just in retirement. They need it in their 20s, they need it in their 30s, they need it in their 40s, because in every period of life, people tend to make sacrifices towards something, sacrifices of who they really are or who they really want to be, towards some other goal. And so what this process does of really listening to the client and then exploring with great questioning and exercises is it really does deepen the client's understanding of who they are and who they really want to be. And then one of the things that we do in Evoke is we say, it's time that it happened. And for many people, they were thinking that they do something in retirement 30 years from now, and we get them down to 10 years in an Evoke program, and then we get them down to a year and a half, believe it or not. And then they often will email us after the Evoke program 2 weeks later and said, I put down my down payment on that ranch that I wanted in retirement just this week. So it happens, we inspire them to really move for what they want. And I'm so glad you're there doing that in Canada. Wonderful to meet you. And I'm going to move to Sebastian from Germany. And we feel very friendly. A lot of us feel very friendly about all of the countries out there. And I know that Sebastian knows that. And from me in particular. Good to see you, man. What do you have to share today or to add today?
Thank you very much, George, for this welcome, and hello to everyone in this incredible community. And first of all, belatedly, of course, I would also like to personally wish you all the best for your birthday and lots of good wishes and energy for the coming year, George. And thank you for giving me the opportunity today to hear your opinion on two questions that I have come across and to which I have not yet found a satisfactory answer. I'm not sure if my questions are appropriate in this context here, but today we haven't asked me anything, so I give a shot, and I love to hear your take on these questions. First question is, what do we do with people who may be facing a terminal illness, where the question of the ideal life can no longer become reality, and even the three wonderful questions of yours become quite inappropriate? How can we still help them find the energy to make them, to have them to have the remaining time as good as optimal as possible? And what would be the life planning approach you would recommend here? How do you deal with such a situation?
And Sebastian, you said you had two questions. Do you want to pop the other one into, and I'll see what I can do, weaving them together?
If you like, just stating evoke is undoubtedly the most elegant tool to help people recognize the important things in their lives, and above all, to find the energy to pursue them consistently. Life shows us that priorities change with regard to the things we believe will bring us to satisfaction. We expect from life. Your wonderful work around the 7th stage of maturity also reflects that every person exists at a certain stage of evolution. And in some cases, we see movement in real development towards ultimate freedom. But in most cases, we see stagnation, often encountering situations where people exchange yesterday's desires for tomorrow's desires. However, the depth of your work points out that there is always an essence in which we ultimately find peace. And it seems to me that few people are willing to confront this essence and instead remain caught up in the superficial game of life, in living within the matrix, if you will, in earthly matters and in the cycle of samsara, as you call it. When I return in recurring conversations with clients to the simple questions, what do you need in your life to live the best possible life? What must be present for you to happen? I often feel that the service I provide is inadequate. Rather than helping people reach the real essence and thereby their form of enlightenment, it sometimes feels more like a distraction, leading them once again to get lost in the glitter and ornamentation of life. This can sometimes feel unsatisfying. What do you think? To what extent should the aspiration of life planning go?
Oh my golly, exceptional questions, Sebastian. As I should have known, really wonderful questions. Let me go at I'll go at both of them. I love them both, and I have immediate thoughts for both of them. So in the first one, we're talking about a terminal illness and someone not finding the energy to perhaps do what that ideal life was that they wanted to do. And there are a couple of things that I would do there. And I'm going to reference myself. You know, I just turned 77 years old. I mean, it feels like, what? Wait a minute, I can't be that old. And one of the things you probably know, I'm sure you know, that I was one of the first people in the West to get COVID. I got it before anybody knew what it was. And I had a terrible case of long COVID, lasting years and years. And I'm not sure I'm totally over that long COVID, but that long COVID diminished my energy by probably 2/3. So very similar to what either a chronic or terminal illness might do. And what I did, because I'm familiar with these exercises, I went back and I kind of shook myself and I said, hey man, what is your answer to that third question? This is the deepest, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, it's the deepest legacy question that we have in the evoke process. So what is your answer to that third question? And I looked at it and I said, you haven't delivered on this. And I said, you don't know, and this was in the early days of COVID, you don't know what the progress of this disease might be. It might be that you have 6 weeks left. You know, we didn't know what it was, right? We had some idea. So what I did was I did what I would do with a client, which is to inspire them with the closest essence that I can of what that dream of freedom, that ideal image of that third question. The third question is life and death, for those of you who don't know it. And it's about facing the immediate mortality and looking back and seeing, what did you miss? Who did you not get to be? What did you not get to do? So I went at it. I wrote 5 books in a year and a half, finished them. They were a 30-year project. It was my legacy. And that most people don't know about. It has to do with art and meditation and photography and poetry. And 5 books in 2 years and a year and a half. And then I come to the next question is, what do I do next? But so I did that. And then the other thing that I did in regard to this, because one of the things that happens with terminal illness, as well as with something, a chronic illness, is that we don't have the energy. We collapse. And one of the things that I learned was that I had only so much energy every day. And I could expend that in one of 3 ways. I could expend it physically. I could expend it emotionally. If I had a really emotional day, it would go, my energy would go. I could expend it intellectually. So I studied how I could have the very best day I could possibly have, starting in the morning, looking at what I was facing. And of course, there's always these curves that are thrown at you. Something emotional comes up, and there you are. You can't do all the stuff you thought you were going to be able to do. So I would design my day right from the get-go. I would know what it was. I'd know how much energy I needed, whether I could expend it physically or whether I had to limit that to be able to do these other things. So the other piece of that is an exercise I know you know, and a number of others of you will know who have gone through the program, and that is the ideals. We have another vision exercise for those of you that aren't familiar that's called Ideal Day, Ideal Week, Ideal Year. Right? And it looks at, and it's a pretty cool exercise. It looks at, you know, if you were free, how would you spend your day? Right? Every day of the week, how would you spend your day? We give a little extra for weekends. That's the reason we have what your ideal week is, and then your ideal year. So I went at that with a passion, Sebastian, knowing that my number one thing was getting my legacy accomplished. Imagine working for something for 30 years and not finishing it.
Yeah.
And facing your mortality. So that's what I would do. I would really use those exercises and just follow the client. One of the things, vigor is something that does die in the body, and there I was without much less vigor in my body, maybe a third the vigor that I normally would have had. I still was vigorous. I still had the vigor. And it's just a question of how I could best utilize the time. So the second question you asked, I hope that was helpful and intriguing.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah.
The second one is just as, oh my God, what a question. So this is for people who in some way don't feel like they're getting toward what we might think would be a deep depth inside of themselves, get to, as Sebastian's saying, an essence. And so their plan looks relatively superficial. And I don't remember at this point, sometimes my memory fails me on whether I did this or it was one of the people that I trained to become a trainer revealed this story, but I think I did it with a client, and I certainly stand behind it. And this was a client or a couple that it was like that. And they were working 60, 80 hours a week. And they were coming toward a retirement. And I go back to Susan, about, where does my retirement look like? How could they even contemplate it? Having that kind of intensity in their life work at that time. So one of the things that I learned was that if you give the person what they say they want, rather than go you know, I've got a great meditation over here that's really cool that I'd love to share with you, or, you know, can you go deeper and somehow just give them what they want and be a great listener and be really empathic. And you'd be surprised what this was, or maybe you've read it in one of my books. It was that they wanted to watch TV. They wanted to watch television all day, man. And it was like, oh no. And I looked at myself and I said, can I really promise this? And what you do, I think, as a great advisor, is you pull yourself out, your idea of what's great, pull it out and go for who they are in the moment. And you know what happened with this couple was really intriguing. If I recall this right, the woman got over the TV bug pretty quickly, but the guy stayed with it for a while, and she began to go out and do things in her environment. And we could bring up the 3 questions again, and she would be developing and growing as a process. He steadfastly stuck to that, you know, that TV thing. But what I saw him do was go more to the A&E channel and more to the History channel, and particularly the History channel. And I saw that he was getting really fascinated with human history and with how we evolve as a species. And he started to get really interested in going to historic sites. So from this, you know, strange thing about just sitting in front of the TV, suddenly he was going out into the world around him to deepen what it was, where it was that came next. I lost touch with them after that, but I saw this movement occur. So I would say trust the process. And there have been many times where I thought I didn't do well by a client, and they called me up 2 years later and they said, you changed my life. You know, just from listening, just from being there. So that's, yeah, great questions. I'm going to move on if I could. But wonderful. And I really hope we get together. And I'm going to be much more in Europe, I think, this year. So,
Very
cool.
much.
So, Lindy, how do you get fresh lilikoi in Montana? Is that right? Or is it Minneapolis, Minnesota? Minnesota, yeah. Look for frozen. Look for frozen, and you can get some really, and talk about Sebastian's question. You can get the essence of lilikoi, which is passion fruit. Yeah. So I know the rest of you came on for questions of one sort or another. I don't know if you've chatted them up or if you're holding on to them or if we've covered them, but I'd love to hear from as many of you. We just have, what, 7 or 8 minutes left. So I want to hear from as many of you. And I do want to say, I'm just going to give this pitch. I don't know whether I'm supposed to or not, but I printed up this thing. We have some terrific programs happening right away, practically. And that's a really exciting thing to, we've got a 2-day program happening in April. We have a 5-day program happening at the beginning of June, an Evoke program, which is what we've been talking about a lot. And then likewise in July, we have both those. We have 2-day and 5-day programs. The one in July is a 4-day program. It's a Zoom. We've shortened it so you can stay at home. It saves you some money, all of that. And then I'm giving one. I mean, long COVID held me back. I'm now giving 2 Evoke programs a year, which I'm thrilled with. And the one that I'm giving, in addition to the one that I give in Hawaii in the winter, is one in Cornwall, which is one of my very favorite places in the world. And that's in September. But that's enough said. Who's got another question? Matt, looks like you've unmuted yourself. Yeah.
You observed correctly, George. Nice to see you. Always great to hear from you. And if any of you all have not gone through the life planning program, I would highly recommend it. It is life changing in many different ways. So, question about that, George. You know, how has the RLP, Registered Life Planner designation, grown since you initially kind of created it? How do you feel the adoption of it has been going in recent times, and then many years down the road, as when you're no longer here and whatever, like where do you see it potentially evolving to become widespread kind of usage? And little side note, how can potentially technology help further it in a way, AI, whatever that may look like, to a way that maybe you haven't thought of before, if there is a potential use of that?
Yeah. Oh, again, wonderful, wonderful questions, Matt. And the RLP and Laura may have more recent numbers than me, but I think we're close to 700 now, registered life planners. It's slower than I would have liked, but it started at 0. So and we've taught people with the 2-day program from 30 countries. So I couldn't be more astonished at where it is compared to where I thought it might be. I mean, I had no idea that I would be known in 30 countries. That's just phenomenal. And the life planning would be known in 30 countries and held in high regard. So that's kind of phenomenal. And so I think that's one thing. How has it grown? I'd like to see it grow much faster. This question about many years, if I look many years out there, there's a friend that I have in who runs one of the most powerful B corporation movements in the world right now, and he's in the UK, and he now has made a commitment to make every corporation in the UK in the next 10 years, I can't remember what it is, but a force for good, every single one of them. And I've joined him and applauded it and all that, and he's come back and he said, I don't mean you necessarily have to be a B Corp, but you're going to do really good. You're going to be really committed to good deeds. And as you know, that's something that intrigues me right now, that I'm engaged with in a major way across the planet about being fiduciary. So many years in the future, boy, I have not seen anything that comes close to Evoke. I haven't. And I keep looking. And people talk about life planning this or financial life planning that, but registered life planner, I don't see anything that comes close to the training that we've got. And my hunch is, with the trainers we've got and the passion we have around it, that we'll continue to be at the forefront. It'd be very surprising to me if we lost that forefront. So I'd love to see it grow much more rapidly. And here I am, I'm much more engaged for the first time. I'm getting up and I'm going out in ways. So I hope that my energy can add something. But I'm really looking at people who want to be engaged in that way in our community. You included, of course. And I know we've talked about this, or you've talked about it with Laura. So I'm passionate about making it happen. And many years from now, I would hope that it would be happening and completely independent of me. Absolutely, completely independent. And the more, at my age, the more that it has an independent life of its own, the better is how I feel right now. I want trainers to be exceptional, and I want to help them be exceptional. But we also have to get trainings. So that means there's a lot of marketing and publicity and all that we're continuing to work on. In terms of technology, I heard a stunning story about someone who actually had a chat GPT therapist. And believe it or not, they liked that person better than their real therapist. And they were going to graduate school in therapy. They're moving on to graduate school in therapy. So I did go, wow, boy, I always thought that AI is primarily up here and we're primarily here, and AI will never get it. Well, there's ways clearly in which AI will get it, even in communication with us. And I think that's a marvelous, marvelous thing. But still, if there's an AI, even if they've got even if they look like one of you, and they look like a person and they're like a robot or whatever, and I'm coming down to, do I want someone who is a firm that is AI based, or a firm that has a lot of AI in it, and someone where I can really speak as a person, and they have had their own experiences and all of that. And there's no question in my mind, I would want the person. I would want the real person. So I'm bravo around the AI. I think it's a fabulous thing. I'm not worried about it. And the other thing about RLP, Registered Life Planner, is we've got the skills that really make us have that human connection like nobody's business, like nobody, like AI ain't gonna have, even that chat GPT. And so we've gone through something as human beings. That's one of the things that Matt was talking about, others, it's life-changing. What that means is that you are challenged to live your life dream. that's intentional. As a consequence of that, you come out as a better life planner because you know what it is to go through the resistance that you've had all your life to not quite doing it, not quite being there. That's an incredible thing. So we will always have that over AI. They may have a history that they can pick up intellectually, but so that's my thought. And I realize that we've hit the end of time, but I want to make sure I get to, is it Gail? I want to make sure I get the final question in. Laura, is that okay with you?
Right.
Okay, so this will be the
Do you hear me properly?
I can indeed, yes.
Okay, perfect. I'm sorry. In fact, I'm connecting from a very small island in Mauritius. I'm sure most of you haven't heard about it.
I'm so thrilled. No, we have had at least one other person from Mauritius on our programs.
Okay.
And I'm not sure, I don't know where or when, but I know I've seen them in the list of attendees.
Okay, good. And I've got two small questions because I'm only prospecting about the training and the courses.
Yeah.
I'd like your advice or opinion on it. Because of a distance from where the courses are done, would you more recommend online training or in-person training? That's the first. Would it be more beneficial to travel and do the course in person? And given the cost as well and all the implications, would you recommend for going for the Evoke training first and then the 7 stages, or the reverse? Just for a question of efficacy.
Great. Two of my favorite questions. And in terms of online versus in person, I mean, at first we thought, when it happened because of COVID, we wouldn't have had an online program. But COVID came up and we're going, oh my God, what do we do? I mean, Laura and I were freaking out. My wife and I were freaking out. Louis, one of our, if not our main trainer, was freaking out. What are we going to do? And I said, we're going to do it online. We're going to do it online. I remember I had a very interesting conversation with Louis, a lot of resistance, and then, yeah, we're going for it. We're going to make it happen. So what happened was the evaluations that we have coming out of the online program, they're just as good as the in-person program. I mean, it's really stunning. And and there are advantages for the online. You don't have to spend the money on the travel. You don't have to take the extra time of traveling and coming back. And it's 4 days instead of 5. So those are real advantages. There's one more advantage that I realized early on that made me go, I think we can do this. And that is, look at you and me. We're eyeball to eyeball, right? And we're eyeball to eyeball with the whole team. In a Evoke training, you don't get that. We have a dyad up in front and they're working with each other, but you don't see them eyeball to eyeball. So there's an intimacy, even though you don't have this personal physical body intimacy, you have an intimacy in the online training that we don't have totally in the in-person training. That said, I love the in-person training. I mean, I just love being there. And I think everybody that's been to one just goes, oh my God, it's so incredible. How could you possibly repeat it or make it? But the evaluations say otherwise, that it works. So so when it comes to me, I think it would be a very hard decision to make and a very hard recommendation to give. And of course, when I'm talking to someone personally, I always say, well, I'd like you in mine. I'd love to see you when I'm giving one and all that. But I think it's a very hard, very, very, you think you should evaluate it with all those things in mind. And then the other thing is this question about Evoke or 7 stages. I created the 7 stages workshop first. It was my first book. It sold a huge number of copies. It launched the whole life planning movement. The 2-day training is a fabulous training. If I were to choose one, ain't no question. Evoke is the best thing I have ever done, ever created professionally. And I put this online about once a month. In my entire career, what is the thing that I did that was most extraordinary was that I created the Evoke training, and then I got to actually train it and train advisors and have it go all over the world. The Evoke training would be the thing that I would go for, Gail, because what happens from the 7 stages program is you have a feel for it. It feels transformative. It's still experiential and all of that. It's an extraordinary program, great listening skills. But in the Evoke program, you come out of it and I'm looking at Ohan and Lindy has had to leave. Matt's here, but you start implementing right away because you have lived what it is to go through a life planning process. You come together with another person. You choose your partner for those 5 days, and they life plan you, and you life plan them. 5 days later, you're on fire. About your business? Yeah, but you're on fire because your life has changed. You're going to really be the person that you've always wanted to be. You're going to tackle the things that remain. And that's an amazing experience. It is life-changing. But then you come out and you've got all the skills, EVOKE, to come out and just do it. So I would do the Evoke program first without question. Yeah. If you can't, then 2 days fine to do. We have them equally stratified, basically. But yeah. All right, and I'm sorry that I wasn't able to get questions from Joss and Lisa and Willie and Hannah. And all of you that are new that I just met, Kyle, Robert, Bob, Susan, wonderful to meet you. And my dear friends, Ohan and Sebastian and Matt, great to see you. Jake, nice to meet you. Hope to see you again soon. Keep in touch. Laura's the one. She's, reach out.
Yeah, I'll send a follow-up email to each of you. Robert, I'll send you an email specifically answering your question around a discount for a spouse. But we do offer, especially if your spouse wants to go through the life planning process with you, a special rate for that. Please, so I'll send you a follow-up email. There will be a discount if you want to take advantage of attending a program or registering for a program over the weekend. We'll offer you an additional 10% off of our existing rates just for being here, because we want to encourage your enthusiasm for this work. But please reach out with any questions you have. And thank you again, George, for taking the time to answer questions. Thank you for being here.
One more thing, if Bob is thinking about a spouse coming, it's one of our favorite things. The lead trainers love it more than anything. Was probably the thing that made me happiest in my work as a financial planner, just doing it. So a big shout out to the possibility of doing that. I've got to run. Great to see you all. Much aloha.
Thank you. Have
Bye,
a
everyone.
good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.